Welcome to the Grandland Network. My name is Andy Greenwald. This is such an exciting day here in the Los Angeles studio. My guest is the former lead singer of My Chemical Romance. He is a comic book writer, illustrator, dreamer, Renaissance man, pancake maker, and eater, and the maker of a fantastic solo album, Hesitant Alien, that is coming out on September 30th, 2014. Gerard Way, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for dressing up.
Oh, yeah. I have to get used to this now. I have to wear this all the time.
This is pretty exciting. So we're recording this in July. We're not going to post this until closer to your album, but you, I believe from social media, have just purchased this new uniform.
I have purchased this new uniform. It's the first time, like, I used to put things together.
Yeah.
And it started way back, so I would go to Old Navy and go to the women's section to get pants.
Sure.
Because you couldn't get, like, there was no such thing as skinny jeans, and there was no such thing as boot cut for men or anything.
You want that baggy.
Yeah, it started with that, and then it moved on to, you know, it was always like a pair of jeans and a jacket or something. You know, I never had a suit.
No, this is new for you.
This is a new look, yeah. This is a new thing.
When was tell me about the decision-making process. When did you feel like you needed a suit?
I did a drawing, and I just do these drawings. Like, they happen kind of every time I'm thinking up a record. This wasn't a concept record, though, so, yeah, I didn't really know what the look was going to be.
Yeah.
But I was making a really fuzzy record, you know, and I thought it would look really cool to have something not grungy or fuzzy at all.
Like a sharp lines to go against the fuzz.
Yeah, exactly.
But you are a veteran of a number of different uniforms, wardrobes, looks, and so at this point you know if you're going to be wearing it for a while, there's certain things you need to look for. You need it to be a little bit breathable. It's hot out there today in Los Angeles.
Right, right.
You know, when we first met, you were wearing a leather jacket, which was not the most warm weather friendly garment.
Right.
So are there plans built into this suit? I mean, do you have vents? Is there a second layer you can throw on when you're touring in the winter?
I do have a fishtail parka that I plan on wearing over this.
Nice. You do know this is a gentleman's wardrobe type podcast. That's all we're going to talk about.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so. I'm in a whole new world now of gentleman's clothing. So.
Yeah. Well, you're a gentleman now.
And I am. And it was like, oh, I can, like, I tried on some other ties, and I was like, oh, it changes the whole thing.
Yeah.
I can just buy ties now.
This is a whole new thing for you.
Yeah. Even though I'm wearing, like, a black one today, I could have ties other than black. I could have plaid. Basically, I'm trying to look like a Dick Tracy villain. So
Okay.
I'm not really, but that's the end result.
What is your Dick Tracy villain name?
I think I realized it was the jitters.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coffee, and then I would have some kind of twitch.
Yeah, and we're going to watch as this interview goes. There's the water cup level and the coffee cup level, and we'll see which one goes down first. I'm very excited to talk about the new record, but I'd like to dial it back a little bit, go back in time.
Okay.
Last time I saw you was in 2012, I think, at the Morrison Con. This is this crazy event for both of our favorite writers, the Scottish surrealist comic book writer Grant Morrison, who has since become your friend and collaborator.
Right.
And when I wrote about the breakup of the band piece, I wrote about how that was kind of a perfect place to see you, because here was this very underground, very weird thing that was being celebrated with all these like-minded people in the shadow of probably the grossest place on earth in Las Vegas, taking it over.
Right.
We talked there. You were not wearing a suit.
Right.
You had black hair, and you were talking very animatedly about the new My Chemical Romance record. You had just started tracking. Fast forward 6 months, there is no longer My Chemical Romance. So can you talk me through what actually happened?
Sure, I guess I'll do the best I can. You know, what happened? What happened was it was very internal. You know, I think there's a few things I think are confusing about the breakup of the band, and I think that's because it's not a typical band breakup. Like, nobody threw a punch. Nobody really, nobody hated each other.
No one slept with each other.
No, none of that.
Yeah.
You know, so there was none of that. So, it's hard. It became. I noticed right away. It became hard to explain to people, like, exactly the reasons. But it was an internal thing with me, and it was, you know, I had achieved personally, and the guys with me, like, all our dreams, like, I mean, and far past it.
Yeah.
You know, My Chemical Romance to me was always supposed to be this, like, experiment, like this, you know, this kind of social movement, experiment, advocacy for mental health, jamming up a ton of musical influences so that way you can explore various things. And it wasn't supposed to last forever, and so I had never. I would do these plans like far in advance. When I wanted to start the band, I had written out like, okay, there's the first record, and we're gonna do it in a basement, and then we'll make our Siamese Dream, and then we'll get to make our Melancholy, and then I didn't have anything after that because there was a part of me that was like, well, we'll see, we'll worry about that when we get there.
Yeah.
But I never did figure it out when I got there, So we play MSG. That's basically one of the last shows. We did a run in South America and Southeast Asia after that. I had just gotten married to, the most perfect, beautiful person, artistic, inspiring, everything I could have ever wanted, and it felt like the ride out in the sunset, But instead of doing that, I did feel like the touring after MSG was really brutal too. I feel like that kind of put extra nails in the coffin.
This was touring Danger Days.
No, this was touring Black Parade.
Okay,
so we're in Black Parade era.
The MSG, that is a pivotal show. That's guys all talk about.
Yeah, and it all came together for that show. That's where me and Mikey saw the Pumpkins and said to each other, "This is where we're gonna play here one day. We're gonna start a band at least." We didn't actually realize we were going to play there.
Yeah.
So then the touring after that was definitely more nails in the coffin, and I had already begun to feel. I had an exchange with Frank backstage at MSG, and I think he had said something to me like, "You're not having any fun, are you?" And I just said, "No, I'm not."
Well, also because Black Parade was such a dark record.
Yeah.
And you changed so much in the making of it. And then you were also playing a very intense character on that record.
Right.
You were not wearing a suit.
Right.
But it was a different kind of suit, maybe.
Kind of suit, yeah.
And I can only imagine what it was like playing this avatar that represented a darker time in your life.
Right.
When you had already left that time. And you were up there going through it. And also, your fans are incredible.
Right.
And devoted and dedicated. And they were on different stages of their personal journeys. And the darkness in that record.
What you said right there, that's the best way to describe it. Just different stages of personal journey. That's in the end is like kind of what happened for me and Mike Hem. I was just at a different stage from maybe some fans, maybe some other people in the band. I was just at a different stage as a human, But that's what was going on in Black Parade is we were at just different stages, I was releasing. I was kind of that I had the benefit of that being a release for me every night.
Yeah.
And eventually I was like, great success. I've worked
it
all out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, so from there, then we crossed paths at some point in the middle there, and there was a My Chem record that didn't come together that was a little bit more Detroit centered, and we talked for that spin cover around then.
Right.
And then the album that actually did emerge after some internal hardships and struggle to get the right sound and what you needed and some personnel changes to drumming was Danger Days, and I will ride for that album forever. I love it.
Yeah.
And what was so exciting to me about that record, and still is you were talking about the journey you had written out for the band, for yourself. You had made, in my mind, the full journey from black and white and darkness to bright, blazing color.
Right.
And it was such a celebratory album.
Right.
And I wondered if that was a place that the fan base wasn't ready to go yet. If they weren't ready for the bright sunshine and the ray guns and the playing in the desert.
Right. Yeah, and it felt like I'm really proud of Danger Days, and I'm glad it happened. I'm glad there was something that was off the script. It didn't have to do with the plan.
Yeah.
That was really cool. But I guess more to the point of it, like if I was going to go off the script and if I was going to keep doing it, I had to do something that I was A, proud of, B, in line with who I was at the time.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. So, and maybe people weren't. I think that's a lot of what MCR kind of was. It like was this thing that was intense and about mental health and about treating people equal and it was really dark to get to the bright. It was always really dark, and I don't know that it sustained turning the color up.
When you recorded a song like Kids From Yesterday, which I know is one of your favorites, and it's probably my favorite maybe out of the whole catalog, did you know that was a farewell to the band when you put it last on that record?
I didn't know that, but I gotta say that when I was working on that song, it didn't feel like an MCR song, MCR made it, but it didn't really feel like one, or it felt like a direction that, I mean, I felt like that was most representative of where I was at the time, and I felt like that should have been the first single in a lot of ways. Like, I felt like it should have been Na Na, but to me, the real important song on the record wasn't Sing. It was Kids from Yesterday. That was the sentiment I wanted to get across.
Right.
And that's the most growth I could show was in that song. So that's really where I knew I was going. And then because of Danger Days not capturing that culture like Black Parade had, it was only natural to retreat back into this really dark thing,
Really?
And then the record that didn't get made was extremely dark.
Huh. And was that fueled just by the reaction to the previous record, or was it the other members of the bands bringing their own thought processes into it?
I think we were all I know I was bringing in some pretty dark energy. I was facing like mentally a really hard time in my life that I haven't been that depressed since before I started the band.
Wow.
I had hit this point in my life where I was extremely depressed, and it's really obvious to why that happened. I mean, I felt very trapped. I went against what was in line with myself as an artist. I completely went against it, and I said, all right, well, I guess my chem is just super dark. Let's do the super dark, because that's what people want. That's what we do well. Like, we're on a train right now. It's gonna keep going. And I think there was a part of me personally that was trying to recapture that Black Parade energy instead of doing what I always knew I should have done, is to never try to recapture, to always move forward. And if that means you got to walk away from something, do it.
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of people think of a rock band, especially a successful rock band, as a career. But for you guys, it was sort of like a rocket ship. I mean, and and when I saw the version of you that's here now, the person that I saw in Vegas, what you said earlier, you achieved your dreams. I mean, you were married, you have a daughter, you were pursuing so many other things. You were living here in a sunny place, in a home. You were drawing comics. Music, especially the music business the way it is now, seemed like it could only hold you back. It didn't seem to make as much sense.
Right. It stopped making as much sense. And so that My Chem record that didn't get made, it was really, not only was it really dark, I had begun, it was supposed to be like a whole stage production that we went into places like the theater that's here in downtown, the Disney
Theater, yeah.
It was supposed, because that's where I'd seen Black Rider. So it was this complete, I was basically finding anything else to do besides write music, and that started on Danger Days, really. Like, once that music was done, there was really no tweaking to it. It was just like art. And then this was starting right away, where it was like, it's like I cared what the songs were, but it's like, it's just going to be a bunch of dark stuff. And we're going to build costumes and stage set, and it's going to be this storyline about a support group of parents who are dealing with the loss of their children.
Whoa.
So they make up this story about the children all being missing in the woods and fighting this witch. And that was what it was about.
Did you have a name for it?
Yeah, it was called The Paper Kingdom.
It sounds kind of cool. It sounds dark.
Yeah, it does. And, there may be a time in my life where I want to do The Paper Kingdom, and maybe it's a book, or maybe it's something else.
Yeah.
I don't feel that dark. I don't feel like I want to be in a support group for mentally on stage every night, being a support group.
Well, that's the other thing that that I definitely observed, in writing about you and your band and other bands that had similarly intense fandoms. The demand on the performer is great, and not to make you out as a victim, because I think you enjoyed interacting with people and helping people through this whatever time of their lives in the way that your favorite bands did for you. But it's a constant need and a constant demand, pointed in one direction, and that can be overwhelming.
Yeah, My Chemical Romance, everything about it owes like 99% to the fans. It existed despite what radio wanted at the time. It existed despite like the tail end of nu metal. That was all fan driven. I feel like in a lot of ways we were the first internet fan-driven band. We were like the first internet fandom that drove a band was My Chemical Romance. And I think My Chemical Romance always existed to kind of combat something or exist
In opposition to
in
something.
opposition to something. And I thought that was the exchange we had with the fans that was really magical, was that, you know, you believe in us and we will exist despite something. You know, and I felt like it had come a time for that to end. You know, I didn't feel like fighting anymore. You know, and I felt like it was a disservice to them that I wasn't fighting against something. Not that I lost the fight. I just felt like we all did a really good job. The fans, the band, we did a great job.
Well, also fighting in that way about art is a young person's game.
Right.
You know, and it doesn't mean, and I find this, I mean, I don't listen to music the same way I did when I was 15,
Right.
18, 22, 25.
Right.
I think I'd like to think I still like music as much, but I don't want to fight with someone about it. I don't want to say that this represents me and it's in opposition to something. I
Right.
just want to like it.
I don't want to fight about it. Yeah.
And that's hard.
It's hard. I don't want to. And with, you know, making the record, making Hesitant Alien, I didn't want to fight about it. I just wanted to make it, and that's exactly what it did. I didn't fight with any, you know, not we weren't fighting in the band, you know.
Yeah.
But I didn't fight with anybody else. If somebody said, "We want you to do this," I would say no. And we want you to do this, and we want you to do this. We want you to go to Sweden and work with these like pop producers. I just said no, simply, and I won't make that. I will make this, and this is what I'll do.
Well, let's talk about that.
Sure.
I love this record, but I have to tell you, now that you're sitting here, I'm shocked that it exists. I really did not expect you to go back to making music, maybe ever, let alone right away, because it seemed, you know, you have always had many other interests, and you seem quite happy exploring those interests, and you know, you can write a screenplay, you can make a movie, you can write a comic book, and you can do those things without aligning yourself with the larger industry and machinery that the record industry demands. And so, for you, was there any moment after the announcement of the breakup where you thought, I'm done with that for a while, or were these songs and things already bubbling in your head?
When the band, you know, there was a period where the band was done, and then we didn't make an announcement for quite some time.
Okay.
During that period, I tried everything I could to escape music. I tried to. I'm gonna write young adult novels. I looked into every single option. You know, I'm just gonna be a full-time comic writer. I almost had a monthly book. You know, at that point, there was a lot of things floating around. I'm gonna work on this TV show with Christian Jacobs. I'm gonna keep taking moving meetings, and I was trying to scramble. And then what honestly happened is I had made a couple demos before the band had broken up, and I started listening to them again, and then, you know, I had a guitar there, and I said, no, I'm going to make music. Like, because that's automatic. The other stuff, as much as I love it, well, basically what's automatic for me is ideas.
Yeah.
They're automatic. Like, I wake up, and, you know, if it's not right away, give it 10 minutes or give it 2 hours. I'm going to come up with some new idea, and I may or may not pursue it, you know. I'm always creative, and I'm always doing that.
Do you have in your house? Do you just have an office or a room where you do all of these things?
Yeah, I have an office, you know, and I've like 3 setups. I have a desk with my computer that I write at. I have a digital art station, and I have a traditional art station.
And do you have instruments in there too?
I have instruments too. I have a guitar right next to all that, so I have everything I need.
So, but it's not. I'm curious about that only because it seems like, since you do so many things,
right?
Maybe it would be good to have one space for one thing, one space for another.
Right.
But actually hearing you talk about it, the ideas come, and then which station you go to.
Exactly. Yeah, I need all that stuff within hand's reach, you know. And like one shelf has all the comic reference I need, which is usually because I draw so much from comics anyway. There's really nothing else sitting on it. A couple of art books, but comics are such a big, you know, influence on me that I have to have those. And those are the only books I really require besides a rhyming dictionary, which has been replaced by my phone.
Yes, so you don't even need that anymore.
I don't even really need that. I have like 5 of them sitting there. They're the same exact Penguin copy, just so I always had them. But that is always happening. The writing of the comics, the directing of the films or videos, all that other stuff. That's really doesn't come second nature. I really sit and I grind it. Music is the one thing that comes automatic, and when I have to do it, I have to do it. And that's how I knew that I still needed to make music, because that's the one thing where I just have a song, I pick up a guitar, and then I make a song.
Did you feel, you talked about the depression that you had felt prior to the breakup. Did you feel free once it was over? Did you feel suffused with some new kind of energy or happiness?
I did, and it was just a big relief. When the announcement was official, I was in tears, obviously, over it. It was because it was really sad, and it was really sad because there's nobody to be mad at,
Yeah, so the only thing you could do was actually accept it and process it.
Yeah,
you couldn't stick anger in the way as a barricade or resentment.
There's a lot of solo artists that now that I'm a solo artist, it gives you a peek inside other solo artists, and then you start to realize how much other solo artists are driven by anger.
Yeah.
And that fuels the entire thing. And God bless them, because that is a lot easier than it being fueled by something else.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there going like, yeah, I did walk away from a lot of stuff, and it wasn't exactly to do this. It was just to become fulfilled and happy, and it was really to go to the next stage of my life, whatever that was, writing comics or whatever. But I started to process it and like, oh my God, like a lot of my favorite solo artists, a lot of them, not all of them, were mad at somebody. And that's why that's the fuel.
Oh, I mean, some of the best records of all time are breakup records of relationships or of bands.
Right, or bands.
And you have to know also that, no matter what you say in this interview or all the interviews you're going to do now, people will be parsing this record, looking for clues.
Oh, they absolutely
and looking
will.
for evidence and looking for...
And they'll find stuff in there, for sure.
Really?
Yeah, because, what I did with this record, and a lot like the other ones, like, I did play around with the abstract more, but it's still all in there. Like, even in 00, the first demo where I'm saying jet lag is suffocation, it is about all that stuff, It's about a little bit about being a musician, a little bit about breaking up, and a lot about realizing that I fit in by not fitting in, like, and that you don't have to be a part of something in order to fit in.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You had this newfound freedom, but in some ways that much freedom can be a prison, because if you wanted to make music, you could make any music.
Right.
And, My Chemical Romance was free to do all kinds of things, and you made enormous stylistic jumps. But now, even without that, with no familiarity, no expectations necessarily from the band, you could do almost anything. What was 00, the first demo? Was there one demo where you said, oh, this just feels good, this feels right, this is what a Gerard Way solo
Millions,
record?
actually, was the first demo. That's still the same vocal take on it, and Millions came really early. It was this song I was working on I called it like Kelly Deal, because it reminded me, I think Gerard was playing drums that reminded him of the Breeders, and so, we started thinking about Kim Deal, Kelly Deal, and it was called Kelly Deal for a while, and when I heard that, I was like, God, this is what I'm supposed to be making right now. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. But by the time it did get to 00, I realized, oh, I can make an album of this. I can keep moving. The idea, which didn't happen, was to have such an immediacy to it. It was like, I want to make an entire record right now and just put it out.
And who were you playing with? And were you recording
Nobody
here in
at
LA?
this point.
Yeah.
It was just Doug McKean and myself, and he was programming drums on top of whatever it was I was doing. And it was done very quick, not a lot of overthinking.
Here in LA?
Yeah, that was in LA, yeah.
And at this point, you're making music, and you alluded to people wanting you to go to Sweden. I mean, once you show your face as a potential solo artist, then people started making suggestions.
A lot of people have ideas about what it is you're supposed to be doing as a solo artist.
What's single best piece of advice, single worst piece of advice? Okay. And you don't need to tell me who gave it to you.
Yeah, single best piece of advice. A single best piece of advice was follow the art.
Okay.
Like, trust yourself, follow the art. The worst piece of advice...
Go to Sweden.
...was go to Sweden.
That's probably just bad advice in general.
Yeah.
It's a nice place, but...
And there, that wasn't just one individual. There was a couple of people, because, look, here's how I think about it. I think... I don't villainize anybody for having that idea, and I'm not upset with them, and I'm not angry about that idea. I get it. You just had this machine you know? And this machine was providing everyone with X amount of whatever, clams or, X amount of dollars or kudos.
In Sweden, actually, clams are recognized as currency.
Are they really?
Yeah, it's totally fine.
Okay,
Shellfish.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we keep that flow happening?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Especially in an industry like the music industry, consistency is the most valuable possible
right,
thing.
right. So we've lost this, but how can we take this and situation and parlay it into relatively the same thing? And that's easy by working, like going full pop, or basically making a my chem record but without my chem. And I wasn't interested in any of that at all. And the guitar had been told. Another awful piece of advice came from numerous people was the guitar's dead.
Yeah. Well, that actually doesn't surprise me that anyone would say that.
Yeah. The guitar is dead. Distortion is dead. The guitar is like, and it's still going on, but the guitar is like less important than the keyboard.
Yeah. Well, for who? I mean, that's the
right.
The
Exactly, for who?
But the thing about this record, and honestly, one of the things I've said this to you a lot of times, and I've written this too. One of the things that I loved about My Chemical Romance, not as a teenager when I heard your band, was that you brought a sense of grandeur and performance and spectacle and fun, even in the dark moments.
Right.
A sense of humor.
It was so fun.
To music, and especially at a very literal time for rock music.
Right.
Very crushingly literal time.
Right.
When everything was, there was no attempt at artifice or art or poetry.
Right.
It was just literally, this is your name and this is what you did to me.
Right.
And you put on a big show.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was often that was missed by people. But getting up to Hesitant Alien, I'm listening to this and I'm like, this just sounds fun.
Right.
There's a sense of humor to it and fun to the songwriting, and that is painfully missing from. I mean, guitars are missing from the charts,
right.
But fun is missing from the indie world as well.
That's a great observation, and that's how it relates to my previous work. It exists in a situation where nothing else does. So, and it's fun. Being My Chemical Romance, especially during the Black Parade, and being in this kind of big theatrical death rock band and have all this pageantry when none of that was going on, was the most fun I had ever had in my life. When there stopped being a need for that in the world, it was the least fun. You know? When it started to be this thing that was expected, you could see it come from a mile away. When there started to be like umpteenth number of, and no offense to any of them, copycats of it or just grabbing parts of it, and everything was black hair and everything was theatrical, that's when it became the least fun.
That's when you wanted to take the makeup off forever. I mean,
forever, and I tried, and I felt like I couldn't do it in my chem, and now I feel like, well, now there's really no makeup again, and now there's no fuzz pedals, and there's no. I'm like, all right, I can work with this. I can have fun now. I can. So it's almost exactly the same as what I was doing before, and none of this exists right now, and it's going to be a fight to get it exist. Great, that's what I'm good at.
You're smiling and everything.
Yeah,
which I love. So, was it always clear to you that you would be Gerard Way, the solo artist? Did you ever consider a band name or a pseudonym?
No, I the first instinct was, because it was misguided. My own misguided advice was, now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to start a new band. And this time I'll do it right. When in fact it's like, no, you just think right. I realized over time, now you just think right now is a good time for a new band with a new kind of thing. Like, you need to let go of that. You need to take ownership over like what it is you do, the fact that you do constantly change, and just be yourself and just do that. So it took recording a whole record, at least the principal tracks, to realize, oh yeah, it started to become more ambitious than just a 3-piece fuzz rock band. Everything got more ambitious, or a 4-piece fuzz rock band. And then it started to get the weirdness that I like to put in things, and it started to get the scope, and then I was like, yes, solo record, and I'm just going to start now. All right, my first record is real fuzzy and dirty, and that's the way it is. That's, it's not like The Idiot, as much as I'd love to make that kind of record, and it has tones of that, it's not big. It does have a glam to it, though. It's like this trashy kind of glam.
There's a little bit of a swagger. What is an action cat?
I have no idea.
It's awesome.
I just
That's
and that
right
was
answer.
very different from my chem. Like I had no idea what an action cat was. I just knew I wanted a song that took those two words, put them together.
Yeah.
And the song was written after the title. I love one of my favorite things to do when it works is to have a song title and be like, I have to make that song.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that with bands too. Write
Yeah.
down band names.
Yeah.
What does that band sound like? What's their third album?
A lot
What's
of
their-
a lot of My Chemical Romance was shaped by the name of it. It
Yeah.
felt like we were making My Chemical Romance music. Mikey, obviously, he had that band name.
Yep.
And when the band started, I was like, it feels like it's that band. And
Yeah.
then once we got the name, it was everything was born out of that.
But there is some music that couldn't be My Chemical Romance music,
Right.
but with just using your own name, potentially it could be anything.
Potentially, yeah. It's, and again, it goes back to the whole, like, if you're staying in line with your art and true, it should always work. If you're trying to communicate, it depends on also what your goals are.
Yeah.
I don't have a ceiling on anything, but at the same time, my goal is not to, like, get to where MCR was without any of the attachments now.
Yeah.
And, that's not my goal.
Well, you have a whole other life
Mhm.
to attend to, right? I mean, you when you're starting a rock band and when you're young, you pour everything into it.
Right.
But I can't imagine you're going to go on a tour that long. You have, or
I may not have the option right now because it's starting from zero
oh yeah.
in such a intense way with a sound that's not on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
So my attitude is, all right, I'll just win it one by one. I'll just, I'll go out and convince people that you should be listening, to fuzz pedals right now. I will figure out a way to do it. If I have to do it piece by piece, because that's what we were doing early on in my camp. That again, it goes back to that's what I know how to do.
Yeah.
What I don't know how to do is to keep giving people the same thing.
One thing that has changed, though, and I'm really interested about it, is your relation. I don't know how to phrase this. It's not your relationship with your fans,
Mhm.
but the way that you are interacting with your fans at the moment
Right.
struck me as really refreshing and really interesting. Now, you've obviously had interactions with fans for your entire career.
Right.
We already alluded to it. It was a bedrock of the band and a
Right.
very intense relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It did feel like at times, they were communicating with the patient on
Right.
the Black Parade, and
Right.
you were playing that role for them.
Right.
In the last year on Twitter, you have been, Gerard,
Yeah.
fully engaged with a raucous fan base,
Right.
many of whom seem to also be named Gerard on
Right.
Twitter
Right.
or have your name in their title.
Right.
And you've done it with a smile not only in your picture,
Mhm.
but in the way you're interacting with them. I talked about it in the introduction, but you have your weekend pancake report.
Yeah.
You're celebrating pancakes. You are celebrating, I don't want to say it's banality, but it's not. It's just your life.
It's my life, and my life, a lot of it is taking something completely mundane and making it interesting. Like
Yeah.
fucking pancakes on the weekend, Because I saw how excited my daughter would get about me making pancakes for her, and
Yeah.
I'm like, adults can get excited about pancakes too.
But do you feel differently now about sharing you in the sense that like you're talking about something that came from your family and your daughter, which is very personal, and also this is your name and this is your weekend
Right.
and your time, your personal
Right.
time. You're out there in a very different way that I'm struck by.
Sharing became so vital to my existence. Being able, and I realized that was up to me.
Mhm.
I used to think like, oh, I'm held down by this or I'm held down by that. I only get to make a MyChem record every 3-4 years, and it feels like a prison. Like the only person that's really doing that is me.
Mhm.
Like I'm allowing somebody to tell me that's when it happens. Did I think if you really show certain sides of yourself and just be full on yourself, are you gonna break the mystique and are you gonna lose people? And it's like, yes, you are. But if you don't share, it's gonna suffocate you. And I realized if I just didn't share, and I don't share everything. Like I still keep a lot of the mystery there. I actually saw somebody comment the other day, like on Twitter, was that the more we learn about you, the less we learn about you, or the less,
Really?
or the
That was
less we understand you.
That's the dream, probably.
Yeah, that's the dream.
Keep them guessing.
If you share a ton and people are like, I'm more confused now.
Yeah.
But because the bottom line is I get excited about a lot of different things. It's, it's like having this big palette of things to draw upon. Like I like cats and I like pancakes and there's a place for all that stuff in your art,
But it also seems like it also seems smart. I'm not saying this is in any way calculated,
Mhm.
but it seems smart for self-preservation that the version of you that you are putting out there with consistency
Mhm.
is the happy version of you that is your baseline.
Right.
You're not setting up a relationship in which you will have to be a cancer patient every night with
Right.
with these people. This is who you are. You make pancakes on the weekend.
Yeah, and I think people are starting to realize I was that person the whole time, and that's pretty important.
And I have to say, having met you, I know that you were that
Yeah,
person.
yeah, and that's been actually upsetting to some. I won't say
Yeah.
a lot because it hasn't been a lot, but it has been upsetting to some. I will occasionally get a tweet that says something like, what will it say? It will basically say like, "I like the way you were before," or "I like,"
Yeah.
and it's like, nah, I never was that way.
We have an interview from like a cover story I did with you in like 2006 where you said the greatest part of your life was buying a Christmas sweater.
Yeah.
Wearing the Christmas sweater around. I mean, that's there. If you follow the paper
if you
trail,
look for it.
there's a thread of uncoolness running through
Yeah,
this. I mean,
absolutely. And even live, if you pick like toward the end of the band, I was singing a brief clip with James playing the piano. We were doing a bit from Flash, the movie.
yeah.
And there's stuff like that all over the place. If you kind of, it's hidden in, it's hidden, but it's there. So I've definitely, I'll get people saying things like, I don't know what happened to you. You're not the person I know, or you're not the person you were. And it's like,
But they never knew you.
they never knew me.
Yeah.
And like there's a note, there's a reason that a character is called a character, and my character was called the patient. I wasn't in the hospital. I wasn't sick.
But let's again talk about this. This
Yeah.
was also an era, and maybe this continues, where people didn't want musicians playing characters.
Right.
Everyone loves superheroes at the movies,
Right.
but there's still, and maybe always will be, this thing where it's authenticity.
Yeah.
And you have to, which is also just a stupid term, because everything emotion you were expressing on those records was
Right.
plenty authentic.
Right. Right.
But you were also putting on a show, and there's this expectation. I mean, I find the internet to be, I mean, it supports me. It's my job.
Yeah.
I love so much of it, but I also, there are pockets that are so toxic and so negative.
Yeah.
And a lot of that I feel comes from the constant demands and draining and sharing. And I'm impressed at how you've navigated it, and
Thanks.
have you found those pockets, and
I
how do you stay
have
away from
because I had my fair share of meltdowns, just like everybody else that I've seen. Sometimes the meltdowns happen for people and they go away for good.
Oh yeah.
And that's, I think as a people using social media and the internet, I know personally I've come a long way. I feel like it's when you realize you can be educated by it and you can start learning. I feel like I've learned a lot from these kids. I learned how to talk about transgender people, I like properly, I've learned how to deal with like kind of touchier issues. I've learned to not, even if you've been unsolicitedly or if you've been unprovoked, you have an attack against you, not to then verbally threaten someone, you know? Like, I've learned all the stuff, I've learned to mute people, not block them.
These are the more political moves. That's
Yeah.
smart. That's just savvy.
Yeah, I've just learned, I've learned a lot, but mostly I've learned and witnessed a lot of progress in terms of, social issues.
Mm-hmm.
That's been great. And to be able to contribute occasionally by writing a blog about mental health or things like that. I'm really proud of a lot of things that are starting to happen on the internet. And I realized, like, it's a big waste of time to argue with strangers. And more importantly, I realized I don't care what a stranger thinks. To realize that takes a lot of work.
It's
though.
hard because it's also hard to realize that if you get upset about what they think, then you're giving them power to do that to you.
Yeah,
You're just
yeah.
taking that part of yourself and you're giving it
Right.
away.
And there was a couple instances where I realized, wait a minute, I'm arguing with somebody I don't know, and I don't care what they think.
And you're getting really
and I'm
worked
getting
up
emotional about it. I had to realize, oh yeah, that's done.
Yeah.
I don't like. That's one of the things that changed with social media. I started to care what a stranger thought, and now it's like I don't even care about your tweak to what I'm doing. Like it's just I don't want to hear it. Like I don't have to hear it,
But it's still. A fan asks you to see if they could see your home screen on your phone, and you shared it.
I share it because I know it's there, and I know it's weird, and it's like, and I'm okay with that. I think authenticity is important, And it happens to be a bonus if your authentic self is fucking strange. That's kind of what I feel. Right now, that's what people need. Maybe after this record, they're gonna need a more intense character. That's what my gut tells me is the next step for me as a solo artist is to experiment with characters again. Really start moving. I think I'm already one. Just by neglecting to be a character, I've become one. This alien, this hesitant alien character, and then I like that he's hesitant. Because it's not full bore Bowie at that point.
Yeah, he's not quite sure.
He's not quite sure about this.
He's dipping a toe into strangeness, but wearing a Christmas sweater. He's a little.
And it's a little risky to have the first word of your album be the word hesitant, because you definitely don't want a music reviewer listening to it going like, "Well, this guy's unsure."
Yeah.
Because they could do that so easily.
So easily. But
they could have called the Black Parade the Whack Parade, and I still went ahead with that. So.
Huh. God, why didn't I think of that?
Nobody thought of it.
What is a.
Yeah.
So you've been sitting on that for 8 years, being like, "We dodged a bullet."
Yeah, I thought for sure somebody was gonna go 2-word review, Whack Parade.
I can't believe. I mean,
that's what I would have wrote if I hated the record and I was a journalist.
Someone in England had to have written it.
Maybe there could be. Somebody will surface now and being like, "I did it."
Yeah, exactly. They'll hold up a torn page from their zine.
Congratulations.
Like tweet at you.
Yeah.
Still hate you, but.
Still hate you.
Got it.
Learning to have a sense of humor about yourself became vital. You know, I found that to be a very difficult thing to pull off in MCR.
Well, it was a calling for you guys. I mean, it was something that lifted you out of one circumstance and put you in another.
Right.
And you have your fans taking it very seriously. You're taking art very seriously, especially as younger people. You're taking it extremely seriously.
Right.
But yeah, that was a thing.
Right.
Then you let the light in.
Yeah, I let the light in. You know, and yeah, now I just like sharing. I really do. I'll share anything if I think it's of value to somebody. If it's a drawing, if it's a character I just created, it's a new comic. You know, next year, the goal is to. I want to say balance the family, but the family got balanced because now I put in. I have hours that I wake up and I work from 8 to 5 or 6, and I'm so proud of the work day that I put in. That I enjoy the stuff. I'm not working around the clock now because I work so intensely when it's time to work. And some nights I have to go later. Some nights I cut it short earlier. But that's been the most amazing thing in having a family is wake up and go, you better make magic happen right now at 8 a.m. Like, you have no choice anymore.
There's no, yes, I understand that.
You get it. There's no sitting around anymore just waiting for the lightning to strike. You have to make the lightning. And it's a really good skill to learn, you know.
It's a tough one to learn.
Tough one, super, super painful.
But yeah, the other parts of your life now aren't going to move for you.
Right.
So you
they're not. And so now not only, I mean, obviously when the band ended, I became a super present mentally and physically father to Bandit. But now it's even more. Like the weekends I look forward to in this way because I'm just like, I have a whole weekend now. You can just
spend time together.
Focus on her, and try to trick her into playing Dungeons and Dragons, or what did we do a couple weeks ago? She dressed up as a princess. I dressed up as a knight because I have this kind of stuff lying around.
Yeah, you don't need to explain that.
All right.
That's
and we had a blast, and we just. You know, I guess it was role playing. I don't know.
It's on its way. I mean,
it's on its way. Yeah.
Did you just whisper to her about what her dexterity points were? Like you're just trying to teach her certain vocab?
What I liked about it is she was setting the rules, which is great when you're playing with a 5-year-old, and she was coming up with her powers as we went along.
Oh, that's good.
She would correct me, and be like, "That's not how that works."
But eventually, the time will come when you'll have to tell her what a bag of holding is. You know? Like you're gonna have to really bring her to the dark side of total dorkdom.
Yeah. I have a life that, you know, I think I spoke to a friend recently who's going through a really hard time, and it's somebody I'm very close with, and, you know, have been diagnosed with a very, very bad illness, and said to me, we were hanging out on New Year's morning, and said to me, everything is temporary, you know. It makes you, going through something like this makes you realize everything is temporary. And it was so potent coming from him on that specific moment, you know, at that specific moment. And then I realized that's a great thing, you know, that it's the bad is also temporary. The good is temporary. What was great about him saying it, you know, he was basically conveying to me or trying to convey, like, so enjoy this right now, you know. because it's all temporary. It all, you know, everything changes and everything goes away or something new comes in, you know. And my life right now with my family is incredible, so I'm really enjoying it. Like Lindsay's making art constantly, Bandit's, you know, following her mom and making art. We're a unit. We're like a team of 3 people, and Bandit thinks what we do is normal.
Yeah,
She thinks everybody's parents do it.
that's a great way to be.
Super great. Yeah, there's nothing crazy about it. And yeah. Anyway.
One thing that we've talked about over the years and is a key part of the genesis of My Chemical Romance, you even, I think you referred to it when you talked about going to see the Pumpkins with Mikey, was the role that music can play in a young person's life.
Right.
You're, as a solo artist, you're debuting at a time when I feel like music is important, but it doesn't feel as central. Maybe it's just that the music industry doesn't feel as central or doesn't feel that way. I'm curious your take on the landscape you are returning to as someone who was so shaped and defined by the songs that you grew up with and the songs that you heard and the songs you fell in love with.
From my perspective, it is absolutely as important as it always was to the young people that listen to it. But because it's not as important in terms of making money, I guess the portrayal of the music industry or music in general is there's not as much of an emphasis on it. So it would appear that it's not important. It's just as important, if not more, right now. It feels like it's a little more important even to a young audience. But it's not where, it's not where the money is. So if it's not where the money is, nobody's going to talk about it, you know? And it kind of always just, it really comes down to money. It always comes down to that and like, well, what's making the money? That's what we put up on the screen. You know, tomorrow bands could all of a sudden start making money. They could already be important, but that doesn't matter. They start making money, then they're viewed as important, you know? Because, you know, my interaction with the kids and the fans on Twitter is that it is vital to them.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not they buy it is a separate thing, but I know it's vital. You know, and I try not to get involved in the business anymore. I don't. That's not what I do. I've learned to actually kind of become a solid businessman, and that I know when to separate it. You know?
And you know when to put on a suit.
I know when to put on a suit. I know when they're not related. I know when art and commerce aren't related at all. And there's times where you cannot think about how this translates to money for somebody else. You know.
It seems like you've broken free of the narrative that, you know, the magazines I used to work for would put on it, the industry, the money-making people would put on a career. In that you've made a really great solo record as Gerard Way. You might make another one in a year. You might make another one in 5 years. You might write a comic book. You're not going to stop. Or you're not going to go on their schedule. This is what you're doing now.
Yeah, and I think that's why it actually took a minute to set up the whole new thing, because I realized that in order to set that up, in order to be able to be on my clock, like I had needed a solid foundation and infrastructure there, from just my team or working with my manager. Just everything needed to be solid. All the working parts needed to be there, and then that takes a long time to set that up when you've got nothing, you know. Like I gotta buy a laptop now, and I gotta for the stage show just so we have the right sounds, you know. Gotta get a bass rig, you know. There's all these things now, so it's setting up the whole thing. But yeah, once it's set up, I see no reason that it shouldn't just keep going. You know, as long as I want it to keep going and keep doing it, you know. But yeah, there's, you know, maybe I'll have a Tin Machine period or something where it's like I feel like being in a band again. I want to be in a band. You know, but I like thinking about what's next. I'm already, you know, there's a song "Get the Gang Together" on the record, which is it was always kind of my favorite, but now rehearsing it for the live show, it's really my favorite. And I feel like what's next for me is moving in that direction, a little bit this kind of soul, a little bit of what what the Stones were doing.
Yeah, it's a little bluesy. It's
A little bluesy. It has like a weird bends thing happening in it. Some of the guitar work I was really inspired by stuff on the bends. But I think that's where I'm going next. I feel the most comfortable playing that kind of song as opposed to something like Maya the Psychic, which I love. But I feel a little more comfortable playing the stuff that has a lot more depth.
Well, as a fan and as someone who's known you for a long time, I'm really excited for this and for everything that comes next.
Thanks, Ian.
Gerard, thanks for doing this.
No problem.
You see, every podcast we put on YouTube